My educational background has had lots of interesting twists and turns. I started out in a Montessori school in South Carolina where I grew up. And it was a school started by my parents and some of their friends because they didn't like the school options available in the town. And I went to that school through elementary school. And then I transferred to public middle school in South Carolina, and I went to the public middle school and high school. Now, my sister, who's a little older than me, grew pretty bored in the public school system and decided to go away to boarding school where she thought she'd be more a challenge. But that wasn't really my cup of tea. So I came up with another plan, which was to combine my junior and senior years of high school into 1 year and double up on classes and just graduate a year early. So I petitioned my local school board to allow me to do this because they never allowed a student to do this before. And they gave me permission. So I doubled up on my classes. I applied to college. I then decided to take a year off before I started college, and I moved to India for a year. And I taught first grade at a rural school in India for kids who wouldn't be able to go to school otherwise, who were bused into this small school, and I taught first grade for a year. And then I went on to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, which was an amazing place to go to college. I met some of my best friends. The professors were incredible. There were opportunities to study all kinds of things that I'd always been curious about and interested in. So I went to college at Brown, and then I moved to California and got a couple of jobs, which I could talk about more later, and ultimately decided to go to law school. And so I applied to law school and went to law school in New York. And halfway through law school, I started a project about basketball courts as a public space. A friend of mine who played in the WNBA, she and I traveled through the Deep South, and she could step onto any neighborhood basketball court and start playing with whoever was there because she was so good. And I was very much into photography, so I would take pictures. And at the end of that summer, we published a piece in the New York Times about basketball courts as a public space in America. Now, the reason we were interested in this is I had this feeling that there just weren't that many public spaces left in America where people who wouldn't otherwise meet would cross paths and have a conversation and interact. And basketball courts are everywhere. And I thought, well, this is a really interesting example of kind of public space that is everywhere in the U.S. And so we started developing this into a larger project. So I took a leave of absence from law school and did this project and worked for a documentary filmmaker and so on. And then ultimately went back to law school and finished and got my degree. So although I've had incredible educational opportunities and learned a lot, I've also made a lot of choices to follow particular interests and passions that might have seemed like an odd choice at the time or like I was stepping away from an opportunity, but I was always able to come back around and was enriched by those experiences, and they actually helped me define what I wanted to do long term. So very grateful for my educational path. I think that having had the experience of being in not very good public schools and what that taught me about resilience and adapting and learning how to teach myself things and go out into the world and find information, and then having had the opportunity to go to great schools, great college, great law school, and all the benefits that brings in terms of the people you meet and the things you learn and the discipline you get along the way.